Now we are going to take the disorders of skeletal system. We have seen what all are the disorders of muscular system. Next we are going to take the skeletal system into account, and in skeletal system you know that there are joints which have an important role apart from the bones. So we have two types of disorders. One is in which the inflammation of joints takes place. The reasons could be many, and the second is when the bones undergo degeneration. So there are degenerative disorders and there are inflammatory disorders. In terms of inflammatory disorders, we take into account arthritis, that is inflammation of joints, and in terms of degenerative disorders we have osteoporosis, rickets or osteomalacia. So these three diseases we are going to discuss. First one is arthritis because it deals with the inflammation of joints. So we are basically referring over here synovial joints. Now over here again try to recall your knowledge about joints. That synovial joint is something like this. There is a bone which is present, there is articular cartilage present along with it, there is a synovial membrane that surrounds the joint and it secretes the synovial fluid, and over here the synovial fluid is present due to which the joint can move freely. As you can see over this, this movement is brought about by a joint. Of course the muscles are important in it, but the joints have an important role to play, and which joints they are synovial joints. Now whenever this joint gets inflamed, there is excess pain in the body, and that pain is known as joint pains. You might have heard from older people about these sort of joint pains in their bodies, legs pains, elbow pains. So those are due to inflammation of the joints. Now there are four types of arthritis that you need to remember and learn. The first one is rheumatoid arthritis, the second one is osteoarthritis, then there is infectious arthritis, and last one is gout or gouty arthritis. So there are four types of arthritis that we have to deal with. The first one, rheumatoid arthritis, like in the case of muscular disorders, there was one which was autoimmune, so is rheumatoid arthritis. It is an autoimmune disorder. So whenever somebody is diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, there is a presence of rheumatoid factor, which is nothing but immunoglobulin M, and that is an antibody. Now this antibody is responsible for the inflammation of synovial membrane. The antibodies which are generated in the body, not knowing that they are going to attack the cells only, they go and attack the synovial membrane. When the synovial membrane is attacked, there is secretion of excess synovial fluid. When the excess of synovial fluid is secreted, you see over here I have mentioned that there is inflammation of synovial membrane. What happens as a result of synovial membrane inflammation is that there is excess secretion of synovial fluid which is present in the synovial cavity between the two articular cartilages present at the apex of the bones, the two bones which are present in the joint. Now what happens when it starts excreting a lot of synovial fluid, it also secretes small fragments known as pannus. Now these are small gravel like structures which are present. What happens, these granules known as pannus, when they are present in excess over here, they start rubbing against the articular membrane and they cause its erosion. As a result of erosion, this articular membrane, because it is responsible for easy movement of the joints, it gets eroded, it exposes the bone and the bone becomes like this. Now the surface is not as smooth as it should be due to the presence of these pannus inside the synovial joint. Now what happens, whenever the movement has to be brought about, these bones which are eroded, they come in contact with each other, and it is highly painful when they come in contact with each other. So the heat treatment is provided. You might have seen older people, they putting some sort of heat pack on their joints so that the heat is being generated. These pannus, they fragments, they dissolve, the synovial fluid becomes normally as it should be, it comes back to its normal condition, and the joint becomes little bit movable as before, because when it has been eroded, in any case whenever the movement would be brought about, there would be extreme pain. So this is all about rheumatoid arthritis. There is no causative agent for this, it is not infectious, it is only the inflammation which has been caused by rheumatoid factor, RF that is known as, and that RF is responsible for deterioration of the articular cartilage which is present between a synovial joints, two bones, and when that cartilage gets deteriorated, of course the pain would be generated. Now the next type of arthritis is that occurs in older people yet again. Osteoarthritis. In case this rheumatoid arthritis occurs in younger people, it would be known as Still's disease. I skipped it, but please remember, Still's disease is the condition, or it is the case where rheumatoid arthritis has occurred in younger people. Okay, so in case of osteoarthritis, you are going to see this more oftenly in older people again. It is the degenerative joint disease, again the same pain concept, but here there won't be any synovial membrane infection, only the articular membrane gets degenerated and eroded with time, with age, and then again there is pain in the joints. Alright, now the next one is infectious arthritis. Infectious arthritis, as the name suggests, would be occurring due to some sort of pathogen, whether it would be bacteria or it could be virus which is flowing in the blood stream. It would reach the joints and it would accumulate over there, and that accumulation would lead to again the degeneration of the articular membrane and pains in the joint. So the infectious arthritis pardon me, is pathogenic. Now the last one is gout. This one is extremely painful. This one is again treated with heat things and heat substances, heat pads are given, hot substances are being put near the joints and the pain releases. And the last one is gout. Now what is gout all about, or the gouty arthritis? You might have seen people, their hands go tilted when they have disease. That tilting or that swelling of the hands and these phalanges basically is known as gout. That gouty arthritis things occur as a result of defect in purine metabolism. Now when there is defect in purine metabolisms, what happen is that excess of the uric acid is accumulated in the joints itself, and in joints it accumulates in the form of urates. So what we have is that the purine metabolism stops, or there is some sort of defect in it. The uric acid that is being formed, that is formed in excess, and it accumulates in the joints in the form of urates, and whenever those joints would move, those uric acid crystals, they would come in contact with the bones and the articular membranes, and there would be pain in the hands, and there would be excessive swelling as well due to that pain that would be occurring. So these are the 4 diseases that we have to discuss in terms of inflammation of the joints itself. Which joints are we talking about? We are talking about synovial joints, which have a synovial membrane and synovial fluid inside it. It is all about the inflammation of these membranes, or it is about the erosion of the articular cartilage that leads to these disorders. Now what is next is, what happens if the bone is getting degenerated? It has to get degenerated. There is a hormonal imbalance or something occurs like that in the body. The degeneration of bone would occur, and that would lead to thinning of the bones. When the bone becomes excessively thin or they get degenerated, there is automatically a pain that is going to result, and there would be fatigue as well, and many other resultant factors would come into being. So we study 2 types of disorders. First is osteoporosis and the other one is osteomalacia. Now what is about osteoporosis? These osteoporic joints are bones, not joints. These bones are quite evidently seen in older ladies. They have those pains in their limbs, and in case of older men, it is shown in terms of their hip bones are paining, they get deteriorated. What happens at the physiological level is that the bone loses its minerals and fibers from the osteomatrix. Okay, so the fibers and the minerals, they are gone, they are lost, and there are more chances of fractures. As I told you, the bones become thinner because they are getting deteriorated, the matrix is getting rid of its fibers, so the bones would become thinner and there are more chances of fractures. What is the cause of this bone thinning is the hormonal imbalance that might occur. Now which hormone is responsible for regulating the calcium and phosphorus levels in our body is parathormone. Okay, parathormone and calcitonin. Parathormone and calcitonin are secreted by parathyroid and thyroid respectively, and they play an important role in regulating the level of calcium in our body fluids. And due to the hormonal imbalance of these 2 hormones, and apart from that the sex hormones, and those people who are undergoing treatment of cortisone for a longer period, they have such osteoporosis disorder that comes into being in their bones and they become weakened. And apart from these hormonal imbalances, there is calcium and and vitamin D deficiency, which could also be a factor behind this resultant disorder. And please remember what hormones are involved in it. One is parathormone, other is calcitonin. Apart from this, there are sex hormones which are involved. And the patients who are for a prolonged period under the treatment of cortisone, they can also have osteoporosis. Now, in your childhood, you have crammed a lot that vitamin A causes night blindness, vitamin C causes scurvy, vitamin D deficiency causes rickets. So that's what we are going to deal with. In younger people, it is known as rickets if it occurs in childhood, and in older people, that is known as osteomalacia. This is a deficiency disorder basically. The deficiency of what? Deficiency of vitamin D is responsible for causing rickets in childhood, and apart from that, there could be a kidney disease which could lead to osteomalacia in older patients, and it could be an inherited defect as well, where the vitamin D uptake is not completely undertaken. So the bones, as a result of these deficiencies, they contain insufficient amount of calcium and phosphorus, and if the bone is not having sufficient amount of calcium and phosphorus, it is but obvious and predetermined that the bones would be weaker, and weaker bones would be resulting due to the kidney diseases in older people, vitamin D deficiency in both older and younger people, and it could be an inherited defect as well. So this is all about the disorders of skeletal system. You have seen the skeletal system can be malfunctioning if the inflammation of joint takes place, or at the same time if the bones are also deformed and weaker, then also the skeletal system ceases to function, or if in case it functions, there is lot of pain which is resulting as the outcome of these malformed deformities and malfunctions of the skeletal muscles. Thank you.